Hey, I know I haven't made a video in a bit, but I figured I'd throw something up just for the fun of it. I enjoy just making random garbage. So today I wanted to talk about something that I kind of have a lot of fun talking with, which is like morality and, alignments in different shows and, media. And I really like Overlord, so I figured I'd talk about some Overlord characters. As far as like how I'm going to be doing this, I have like lawful as being, they follow like a strict code all the time, and like they kind of have, things that they will not do. They might lean toward good or evil actions, but they always kind of have certain things that they will do all the time or will not do all the time. Good and evil, I think, are kind of obvious, and then chaotic is kind of they're hard to predict, I guess. You don't really know what they're going to do, and they're not really doing a lot of the things that they do with logic in mind. So, of course, I'm going to start with Ainz, main character. I think early on, he's just a normal guy, so he's probably somewhere around here. Kind of good, pretty law-abiding, decent person. I think, early on in the story, there are some times when he does things that you can construe as being evil, but I think, like, when he lets, like, when Gazef's knights die and things like that, I think that's him more so being cautious than him necessarily wanting to, do an evil action. Same with, like, the adventurer party dying and him not reviving them. I think that's just, again, caution on his part and being concerned. But, he also does, at the end of the day, save Gazef, and he also, saves the city, basically. Killing Khajiit and Clementine and all that stuff. So I'd probably, like, lean him up toward being good from there. The problem, though, after that, I think the series is implying that he kind of loses some of his morality. More and more with being undead. So I think he kind of starts to lean back up toward, being slightly less good and also more lawful because he's trying to follow like a code almost before he lost some of his humanity. And that's kind of like keeping him where he is. I think later on, he doesn't really like know about what Demiurge does and things like that, with the whole, demon attack on the city. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to say he's evil there. He also kind of doesn't want certain people to die. I mean, he's like, he specifically says, like, don't hurt these people, don't hurt innocent people if they, follow your orders and things like that. Now, Demiurge probably doesn't listen to that too much, but he still says it. So I would say he's still sticking to this code of, like, I don't want to harm people for no reason. Now, I think with, like, the whole war arc and all that stuff later on, he kind of is more so thinking what's best for me and my people. So I still think he stays kind of like lawful because he's like sticking toward, helping his people. But it would be hard to classify him as good. And now when you get into the Holy Kingdom arc, I think he full well knows what Demiurge is doing at that point, based on everything I've read. So it's kind of like, okay, I don't necessarily think he would go out of his way to do these things, and he probably wouldn't think of these things. But the fact that he's kind of letting it go, I think kind of pushes him toward, probably somewhere about here. And that's where I would leave Ainz for the most part, kind of like, very lawful, but not necessarily against evil actions. Now, I think it's only right to talk about Gazef. Now, Gazef, I have a little bit of a weird take on Gazef. I think first impressions, you definitely think he's like this super lawful good. He's like this, he feels like a paladin almost. But I think if we look at some of his later actions, he sticks to loyalty much, 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 much more than he does, his actual, like, goodwill and being helpful to people, I think, at times. If we look at, like, the things that strike me, he kind of knew how powerful Ainz was. I don't think he knew the extent, but he knew, like, we shouldn't be messing with him. And he even recommended to the king, like, hey, you know, we probably should just capitulate and, you know, let him have that city and all that stuff. But when the king decides, like, nah, I don't think we're going to do that, he kind of chooses to just go with him. And you could say, like, that's definitely loyalty, but it's not really the best move for the people. I think he knows better than the king. And you could say, like, oh, he set things up. He gave, like, you know, Brain and Climb, like, all this time and set up. But I think that's still, like, I don't think that really, like, makes up for the actions, I would say. Like, I don't think those were good actions, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I definitely think he's loyal to a fault. Now, would I push him, like, all the way into the evil category? Probably not. I think I'm pushing right about here, where he's still, like, a decent guy, but he's definitely more loyal than he is good. I mean, I just think if I'm really looking at some of his actions, that's where I would put him. I don't think he's a bad person. I mean, he, like, you know, had a lot of respect for his men and things like that, but it definitely kind of, to me, felt like he was putting his king above the people. Which, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's definitely not something I would say is the best. I don't think it's, like, you know, some perfect human. So I think most people would think he's probably always here, but I kind of put him down based on his actions with that whole war. I think the next one would be Shalltear. Shalltear... She's... I think it's obvious that we're starting in the evil side of things. You know, first introductions to her, I mean, you know, she's kind of following Ainz's ideas, like what she's supposed to do. And you know, for all the Guardians, I would say they're very lawful, but I think for the sake of having a little more fun with this, I'm going to try to stray away from their loyalty to Ainz and more their own code. And I don't really feel like she has her own code. When we're looking at, like, the, you know, Nazarick invasion and everything, I mean, she was horrible to a lot of people. She didn't really seem to have many qualms with, you know, harming or killing people. Really, the only person she listens to is Ainz. So, you know, you're definitely pushing toward maybe here. And I think if we look at her solely based on her actions, and not just, like, who she listens to, whenever Ainz gives a command or tells her to do something, or she does something on her own, I would say it's very all over the place. She's definitely, how do I put this? She doesn't necessarily have much of a code, I would say. If it's an evil action, she'll do it. She likes to see people suffer. So I'm gonna push her down here and say she's pretty chaotic. I would say, you know, if I would almost put her directly in this corner. She's pretty awful overall throughout the series. So, you know, not a great person. Now, next we're gonna go to Climb. You know, Climb. He's interesting. I would say we're going to start out with neutral, because he kind of starts out as, like, a bit of a blank state. You know, maybe you could put him up into, like, lawful slightly. I think, you know, as he meets Sebas and everything, I think you see him pushing toward this good quality, and then he's really hammering in this good quality. And I think near the end of the stages, we see him, like, pretty much below initial Gazef in terms of, like, lawfully good. He really strives to help people, you know, and he's also very loyal to Raynor and all that stuff. If we're talking later, I mean, you could kind of construe him as being anywhere on this side of things, because he's not too opposed to doing things for Raynor after the whole impification crap. But I would say, you know, it depends on where you look at him, and we don't really have, like, a whole bunch to go off of him being all the way over there, so I'm not going to say definitively he's over there. But I would say, like, it's kind of a toss-up here between those two for me. Again, all this stuff, just opinions. Demiurge. Huh. Well, you know, I would say obvious. He does have like a slight code at times, you know, as some of his actions have some understanding, but more often than not, it's pure evil. And it's also like I wouldn't go as far to say as he's chaotic because he doesn't necessarily like, you know, he's not like all over the place. His actions are relatively predictable. They're going to be horrendously evil. So I mean, there's not really much to say. I mean, he used a princess or whatever as like a freaking sword and smacked her around, and you know, is basically the main cause of like almost every massive, you know, destruction situation that happens throughout the series. So, pretty bad. I don't really think there's much to say about that. I don't think anyone's gonna disagree. Now, I like to save the best for last. So we're gonna talk about Eclair. Now, Eclair's an interesting one. He's not much to go off. He's not really like I mean, it's hard to say he's evil. I mean, he when he spills a drink at the bar, you know, says sorry, you know, he wants to clean it up for him. So I mean, maybe, you know, maybe you could start maybe you could start there. He's fairly predictable. But he does want to rule Nazarick, so you know you can't really say he's 100% good. You know, if I really had to mark Eclair as being somewhere, I think I think now he wants to rule Nazarick, right? But at the same time, he respects the, you know, Supreme Ones. So I kind of feel like it would be fair to put Eclair as being relatively lawful. I think he really does stick to the code. And, you know, he hasn't shown anything, you know, that I could really call evil. All he does is get strangled. And you know, maybe he's a little pompous, but I don't think I could say he's pure evil. Yeah, for right now, I think these are the main ones I'm gonna go with. As far as I'm just using these little spray colors because I think I'm gonna add to this, and it's going to look like a mosaic. But for now, yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna end it. Gazef, you know, started out prime lawful good, kind of went a little away from the good side of things later on, you know, questionable motivations. Climb, you know, kind of a blank state, became, again, similar to Gazef, lawful good. Later on, debatably, you could put him back here based on just being loyal to Raynor. Shalltear, I mean, yeah, initial perception, definitely not a great person. Later, based on her actions being, you know, kind of unpredictable and just sadistic, I'm going to put her on that chaotic side. I mean, you never really know where she's going to be. You know, whether it's capturing people, following Ainz dutifully, whatever. As far as, like, Demiurge, yeah. Pretty much pure evil. You could put him up further in the lawful category if you want to say, you know, his loyalty to Ainz. But as far as like actions go, I don't think he really has a code per se. I think he just kind of does what he wants, and I think he has some satisfaction in like, you know, harming people. He literally like skinned people to make the different scrolls, which is pretty awful. you know, Ainz, I would definitely say, he kind of slowly morphed into being more lawful evil, I would say. Started out kind of normal, uh, went slightly toward the good side of things, and then kind of lost his morality, but kept that lawfulness in order to keep himself sane. So he ended up, you know, lawfully evil, I would say. More lawful than evil, if you ask me. Eclair, as the color implies, is a piss take. He, he's relatively lawful. You know, he wants to follow the rules to become the leader. And yeah, you know, I can't really say he did any good. I don't think he really did any evil actions, and you know, he is respectful, so I'll put him at good. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a fun little thing, and I'll probably add to this if people want me to. Like and subscribe, I guess, if you want that. I'll see ya.